Talking to a first generation farmer, and you probably think, oh, it's like a 19-year-old kid. No, he's not. But you know what? He's got some cool stories to tell. We're up with Russ Uselton in this edition of Extreme Ag's Cutting the Curve.
Welcome to Extreme Ag's Cutting the Curve podcast, where you get a guaranteed return on investment of your time as we cut your learning curve with the information you can apply to your farming operation immediately. Extreme Ag, we've already made the mistakes, so you don't have to. Managing your farm's water resources is a critical component to a successful and sustainable farming operation. Advanced drainage systems helps farmers just like you increase their yields up to 30% with their technologically advanced water management products. Visit adspipe.com to see how they can keep your business flowing. Now, here's your host, Damian Mason.
Hey there, thanks for joining us for another fantastic episode of Extreme Ag's Cutting the Curve. If you are around Extreme Ag events, it's likely you might have seen Russ. I think I've bumped into him at two different Extreme Ag events, maybe a third one. And then he was at a speaking engagement I delivered at Western Kentucky University for a seed company. So anyway, after the most recent time I saw him at Temple Roads Field Day, I said, you know what, Russ, I want to get you on and do a member spotlight because you got some cool stuff to share. All right, Russ, you were at the Louisville event we did, and you said, I look down south and I want to have soil as good as Chad Henderson has. I'm in South Central Tennessee. We got some really rough stuff. The Extreme Ag guys all pick on Chad and says his dirt sucks. So there you are. You're pining to have that good of dirt. So tell us about your operation there in South Central Tennessee.
Yeah, I laugh a lot. Folks where I live look south at the good red dirt that the guys down in Alabama have. It's our soil where I am, primarily silty loam, low CEC, high phosphorus, high calcium, and an unbelievable amount of limestone that just grows out of the ground. You know, people talk about picking rocks. If you want to pick rocks here, it requires dynamite and a track hoe.
Yeah. I mean,
you grow out of the ground.
So you've got a layer. Is it because, like, I had some ground like that I was raised farming where it was only 1.5 feet of topsoil in some places, and then it was solid limestone because it had been a river back when the glaciers melted off, 10,000, 15,000 years ago, however many years ago.
Yeah, we have an abundance of that.
Okay.
There's a lot of fences that get built around here. You put a post where you can. It doesn't matter where you want to.
Yeah, right. You go as deep as you can actually drive a post, and sometimes it might be a foot and you hit solid shale. All right, so your farming operation, first off, saying that you're first gen, we always think, oh, there's always this, young couple, they want to be in the country. I mean, that's a neat little storybook that we like to say, but you're not 20 years old, and they didn't do a profile on you on some TV show. You are legit first generation, and you're at it how many years now?
I've been full-time since 2008.
Okay.
I bought my first cattle in 2005, but before that, well, let me go back a little further. When I was my dad spent 29 years in the Army. When I was a kid, people say, ask him what he did. His standard answer was, I jump out of airplanes and kill people. So I went to a career day when I was I think a sophomore in high school, of course, at Fort Benning, Georgia. Career day was at Auburn. And I discovered that there's such thing as an ag degree. Mm-hmm. Life-changing day for me. Mm-hmm. From then on, I didn't know how I was going to be able to participate, but sign me up, I'm in. I went to Middle Tennessee State in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. My folks are originally from Tennessee, in-state tuition, you know how that works.
Yep.
And I basically learned how to farm when I was in college. I got a job at the MTSU dairy. I worked 80 hours a week while I went to school full time. My normal schedule was 3 weeks on and 2 days off. Wow. But I was eat up with it. Couldn't get enough of it. And I always kind of thought that, maybe production, but I'll find a spot somewhere.
Yep.
Like I said, I bought my own cattle. First one's in 2005, and 2008, I was working a sales job, and the economy got bad. My wife and I sat down and had a long talk, and we said, well, if there's ever a time, I'm not making any money anyway. Let's try and see what happens. And like I said, that was 2008, and we're still here fighting and clawing and digging and making a go of it.
So 15 years of being full-time because you quit your sales job. I think it's a cool story that, adversity tosses you into a situation. Sometimes it's sink or swim. But you had a job and you'd made money, but you hadn't been forced into the corner where you have to make it in ag. I mean, it's a little more difficult now. So what's the operation look like today?
Like I said, started back then. I had 5 cows when I started. Rented my first farm in addition to what we already had. We own about 40 acres right now today.
Mm-hmm.
Today, what the operation looks like, I rent right at about 1,000 acres of pasture and hay ground and about 500 acres of crop ground. 100% no-till with cover on the crop ground. And like I said, cattle and hay on the rest of it.
So in your part of the world, as opposed to say where the Farm Progress show was held, where I was last week, there's not mile section after mile section after mile section of corn and soybean fields. I'm guessing you got some curve, you got some rock, you got some hill, you got creeks, things are cut up. It's a very different world. Yep.
I've got a good example. I've got one farm that's just a little over 100 acres. It's got a 300-foot change in elevation.
So 100-acre property, and that's not even all tillable.
No, that's pasture.
Yeah, okay. And it's got 300 foot of elevation change. Okay. So do you, on the hay front, and this is something that's really off the reservation for most extreme ag people because they generally are row crop farmers, do you sell hay?
No.
It's everything you make for hay stays on your property.
Yes.
Got it. And are the cows making you money right now?
Yes.
Got it.
Yes. The cow deal is pretty fun right now. That market is cooking.
Yeah, right. And so your stuff goes traditional to sale barns or to stocker feeders. You don't sell direct to consumer like Kelly Garrett does or anything like that.
No, I did for a little while when I was still pretty small, but it just got to the point. It became more of a commodity for me, the numbers.
Yeah. Got it. Okay. So, you rent most all of what you have. First gen guy, the tough part is it's a hugely capital intensive business. Equipment, crop inputs, it takes $1,000 to put in an acre of corn or something like that. You're not coming in this with grandpa's farm or anybody backing you up saying, hey, we'll go ahead and co-sign, or hey, you can farm and not even pay us for equipment for the first 10 years. You start on your own. So talk about the unique challenges there.
It's tough. It's really, really tough. And I've got to give a lot of credit to a banker that I had in the beginning named Michael Trevucht. Unfortunately, he passed away from cancer a few years ago. But I sat down with him in the beginning. Thankfully, he's got cattle of his own. So he understood where I was coming from. Mm-hmm. And I laid out a plan and I said, Mikey T, here's what I want to do. And he said, I got you, baby. Let's go. And one of the last things he said before he died, I went to see him. He had pancreatic cancer.
Okay, that's terrible.
He looked at me and he said, damn, you're going to pull this off, aren't you? I said, yes, sir, I am. You bet.
Okay, so the unique challenges is you can't go out and, you don't have a bunch of equipment. So like, so you got the cow thing going, and the good thing is the cows, it's a season-long thing. That's all good. And it's a way to utilize really below average ground. I'm assuming you don't have to pay a lot for some of this 300-foot elevation change kind of stuff because, it doesn't have a lot of other value. So it's cheap, I assume, right?
Well, that's relative. But yeah, generally 25, 30 bucks an acre, somewhere around in there.
Okay. And you can put a lot of stuff out there. Are you under capacity right now on your cows?
Yes.
Okay.
by design.
Okay. It's because
Because we never know, as Chad says, because it's the same way here. We're only 2 weeks from a drought most of the time.
uh-huh. So you could have more cows, but you think that you'd better be underutilizing the facilities, the pastures, etc. Okay.
I would much rather look at lush grass than, man, I hope we make it.
Okay. And then tell me,
Landlords like that as well.
sure they do. All right, then tell me about the cropping. You didn't go out and buy the brand new biggest combine. You didn't buy the biggest, I'm assuming. So what's your equipment look like right now, and then how did it get going 15 years ago?
Well, the cropping, funny enough, that actually started in 2018.
Okay.
A farm that I had rented, the guy that was renting the crop ground on it, big farmer, he said, I got plenty of money. I think I'll just quit. So my landlord said, hey, we've got a relationship. Do you want this? And I said, yes, sir, I sure do. I planted my first 70-acre bean crop with a rented hay buster drill. I planted beans, and then I figured out how to grow beans. And I bought a 1980 1440 International Combine. And the first time I drove a combine was when I pulled into the field to start cutting my beans.
All right. So where are you now?
Now I've actually got a real planter. I've got an 815 Kinsey, but it's pretty old too, but it works. Mm-hmm. And I call it my race car because I'm tinkering with that thing forever.
Right.
And I've got a 2004 2388 combine. It's not new, it's not shiny, but it will get the job done.
Yep. And then you don't do hardly any tillage, so you don't have to have a lot of equipment. And also the kind of ground you have, probably that's best to not be tilling much.
That's absolutely right. Good way to break things is to start working ground here.
Yeah. So no-till system works for you. Did you decide you were going to be a no-till producer because of what you learned at Middle Tennessee State, or because you just didn't have the equipment, or because somebody told you, for God's sakes, whatever you do, don't go out there and start trying to till this stuff?
Well, interestingly enough, no-till here in my little portion of Middle Tennessee has been pretty popular here since the late 70s.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hardly anybody works ground. They just no-till everything.
Yep. Yeah, it makes sense. By the way, I want to hear more about this real quick because I want to tell our listeners, it's been a stressful year. If you're in the West, we were talking about over Kelly Garrett's and Lee Luber's, it was 100 in excess of 100 degrees in the Midwest, for crying out loud. So I'm going to ask you this question. Are you ready to stand up to weather-induced crop stress? If you are, turn to Terramar, an innovative biostimulant technology from Loveland Products designed to help your corn and soybean crops thrive even under stressful conditions. It's not just heat stress. It's not just drought stress. Remember, also, if you want to push the envelope on early planting, that's stressful. Cold soil is cold snap is stressful. There's a lot of things that are stressful. Try Terramar, exclusively available from Nutrien Ag Solutions. Okay, so you don't have a lot of equipment, which you don't need it for that many acres. From the standpoint of technology, you talk about that old planter. We talk about at Stuff with Extreme Ag. You can have an old planter if you keep tinkering and modernizing some of the stuff, whether it's 2x or in furrow or some of those things like that. You can still have very effective and technologically advanced planting. Have you done that?
I actually have the equipment in my possession right now to do it this winter.
Okay.
So I didn't want to do it. I had a 6-row and I didn't want to do it on that because I knew I wasn't going to keep it because I couldn't get it around. It's too hard to get up and down the road. But I bought the 8-row last winter, and I'm going to rebuild it this winter.
Oh, that's cool. All right. And then tell me about the practices. So you do mostly all no-till. You grow corn and soybeans. You grow something different where you are.
Corn and soybeans and cover crop almost exclusively on everything.
Okay. How do you get the cover crop in the ground? Use that old drill?
Either broadcast it or drill it in. Yeah, still renting a drill.
Okay.
For that.
Okay, so cover cropping, the person that says, oh, well, I can't make that work. Well, that won't work in Tennessee. Well, that won't work where I am. Everybody always has an excuse. What's been your experience?
Well, I'll just be completely honest with you. I've got a lot of highly erodible land, and my conservation plan says that, Mr. Uselton, you need to be planting cover crops. So I plant cover crops.
Okay. And it works.
Yes.
Okay, what's your system of then eradicating the cover crops when it's time to plant? You use a bar, you just spray it, you don't use any tillage.
Spray it,
Okay.
terminate it close to planting time.
And I assume you hire out the spraying from the retailer.
That's going to change this year as well.
You're going to buy.
But I have been up till now.
Now, do you think you can justify owning a sprayer for 500 acres? Or are you going to use it? Are you going to do some other work?
I may do a little other work, but not much. Most of it's going to be for me because I'm making more passes now.
Yeah.
And I'm also utilizing some things that I'm not buying from my local supplier, and they're not going to do that for me forever.
I see. All right. So a ground like you have, clearly you've outlined it as it's not what you'd call shiny. Do you think that intensive management, like the stuff that you're learning with Extreme Ag, because you are definitely you're taking this as seriously as you're taking your 80-hour work week at the college dairy. You attend the events and you take notes and you're thinking, I'm going to do this. So does intensive management on crappy ground out yield or give you more return on investment than intensive management on good ground?
I really don't know the answer to that question.
Because you don't have any good ground.
Yeah, pretty much. I know what it's doing for me here. This has been such a game changer for me finding Extreme Ag.
Yeah.
I was beating my head against the wall. It didn't matter. It seemed to matter what I did. I could grow about 55 to 60 bushel beans. If weather treated me right, I could make a little noise with corn, but beans and I actually had a seed salesman tell me, well, maybe you just got 50 bushel ground.
Yeah.
I'm not buying that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just not.
Mm-hmm.
And
so on your application, so you started doing some more intensive stuff after you started watching the videos and the guys and all this sort of stuff. What was the first big thing you adapted or adopted?
Probably the most bang for my buck, I guess I could say, bringing PGRs into the mix.
Okay.
I had heard the term, didn't know anything from anything. Last year, I played with humics and fulvics and sugar just a little bit, but didn't really know. I didn't know what I didn't know. And it's funny, cutting the curve, we've sort of smashed the curve and thrown it off in the ditch. I mean, I've made a quantum leap here just by paying attention.
Yeah, well, that's good. That's what we're here for. Here's the thing. If you were doing, I mean, you weren't, even when you first started, you had experience from college and all that. So it wasn't like you were this hopeless greenhorn that was out there doing, really, stupid stuff. But
true.
But so you were actually making a little bit of money then. You're doing more stuff now, you're getting more yield. Is it profitable? Or is it I'm still learning and I'm still applying more stuff and I'm still not making any more? Are you making more dollars per acre now, or is it still about the same?
Yes.
More dollars
per acre.
Yeah.
Yep.
Are you in a position where you think that you'll have, instead of 500 next year, it'll be 600, then it'll be 800, then it'll be 1,000? Or do you think that you're landlocked?
No, the plan is to keep growing.
Yeah.
I've got a neighbor around here that I told him one time when he gets ready to retire, because he keeps floating that idea around. I said, when you retire, somebody's going to be you. And I don't see any reason why it shouldn't be me. He thought that was pretty funny, but I was serious.
Yeah.
One thing that, is at the end of the day, this is a business.
Mm-hmm.
And it's pretty cutthroat and competitive. And I haven't ever been one to pirate ground, so to speak.
Right.
I get what I get, and if I get some more, that's great, but I'm not going to come after yours. I just don't do that.
Right. Temple's Field Day. You were there. Maryland is a long way from what you have and where you are. What'd you see there that was applicable, or that you're saying, I'm going to take back to my farming operation in, what's the town again? Shelbyville, Tennessee.
Shelbyville, Tennessee. One of the biggest things I wanted to see when I went to Temple's is how it's supposed to look. I'm quite certain that his grower standard practice or Chad's or Matt Miles or Kevin, any of them just going to way different than mine.
Yep.
And consequently, their results are going to be way different than mine.
Yep.
So I just wanted to get out and see what it's supposed to look like. And even when I went through the station where the beans were, I didn't get hardly enough time. So I went out with my flashlight after dinner and just took some time and crawled around and looked at plants and leaves and stems, and like I would if I was at home. I wasn't on a time schedule.
Right. Speaking of soybeans, you said that your dad came by and he doesn't know anything about farming, but you showed him your soybeans and he saw something that impressed him. What was the observation?
He couldn't believe how big they were. He said, I've looked at your beans before. Now, like you said, my dad doesn't know anything about farming much, but he could tell a big difference in just how big they were and how many of them there were.
Pods. Pod count. Yeah. Got it. All right. So you were in the audience at Western Kentucky University for that seed event where I was a speaker. When you go to those things, you're obviously still going to field days, and you're not going there just to drink coffee and yik yak with the neighbors. You go to a seed event. What are you going there specifically? I think that if I go and invest my time, I actually have a stated objective. Well, I've got to meet so-and-so because I got a business thing to talk to him about. I need to see this in practice. I go, do you go in there with some objectives? Okay.
Absolutely. I don't have the time to just go mess around. I don't go to town and sit at the coffee shop and drink coffee in the morning. I don't quit and go eat lunch in the middle of the day, at the I don't have time for that. I've got too much to do. When I go to, like that deal or the Farm Machinery Show in Louisville or an XA event, I've got a list. Yep. That particular field day, I had 2 varieties that I wanted to look at.
Yep.
That I have planted here that I wanted to see what they look like there. I also, you met the guy that works for me at that event.
Yep.
He's a young guy, farm kid. He's 23 years old and is a really smart kid. And just, I'm so lucky to have him.
Yeah.
I wanted to take him with me to open his eyes, to look around a little bit and see some different things. Plus look at the varieties that we went to look at to see what he thought about the same thing. And plus, just as a kind of as an aside, I know Damian XA. Never seen Damian the speaker.
That's true. Well, yeah, and I didn't lay an egg too bad that day.
It was great.
Your operation, agronomics, the business side, the soil side, the yield side, et cetera, et cetera. Give me a couple of specific things that you've gotten out of Extreme Ag that you, like you said, okay, you started doing some humics and some folics, and then your plant growth regulators are one of your biggest first takeaways. Like something that you did this year that you're like, yeah, that's going to be a big thing for me.
Oh, again, the PGRs and the humics and fulvics and sugar, I would have gotten there eventually, but how long would that have taken? Who knows? It took a year doing it this way. The PGRs, like I said, we've smashed the curve. We didn't cut it. We just smashed it because I have the resources to ask the questions. How do I utilize this? What's the best way to do this? And, that I've had some questions that they get answered, which is just fantastic for me.
Do you think you're going to be putting in will you diversify your crop mix? Because it seems to me that where you are, and you're not far from Nashville, it just seems to me that you might be selling yourself short. On a small acreage, you might get more bonus, more benefit, more potential profit if you did some oddball thing. Are you going to be delving into anything like that in the next couple of years?
Well, I don't know how much you know about our geography, but Jack Daniels is not real far from here. And they're playing with some different things, some different corn varieties. I think they're messing with some rye. If I can figure out how to crack that nut, I'll wade right into the middle of that. And I'm open for pretty much anything. Being a first gen is a blessing and a curse. It's a blessing to me in that, the way we've always done it, it hadn't been that very long ago.
Yeah, right.
So we can change that.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't have a lot of legacy to concern yourself with. So the thing is, does a place like Jack Daniels, do they want to have that whole story about the small guy, this first gen guy, or do they want someone that has 10,000 acres in one corporation and they just say, boom, that's where our stuff comes from? Makes you wonder.
Most of their, well, not all of their corn comes from out of town anyway.
Yeah.
They have some very specific parameters as far as test weight, moisture, that, they've got some contractors that they're, that's forever. The other deal is just kind of let's play around a little bit and see what happens. If we can find somebody that'll grow some of this for it. It's test kitchen type stuff.
Yeah, right. Got it. All right. One piece of advice, idea, practice that you have used since you started your farming operation that you're like, hey, here's something, a habit, a practice, an idea, a tip, whatever it is that you say, you know what, this has helped me get to where I am.
Well, one thing, and it's not always served me well. It's not really logical when you think about it. If everybody's going this way,
yeah,
for some reason in my twisted brain, that's reason enough that I should maybe go that way because they might be wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they're going that way because that's the best way to go.
Sure. So but you go against.
I've got to go find out.
You go against the grain, but you don't. But you don't. You're not bothered by the fact that you go against the grain.
Not at all. If most people think I'm about half crazy anyway because of the things that I do, and even starting this deal, I can't tell you how many people said, "Oh, that'll never work. You can't make that work." When I planted my first crops, I had 2 or 3 guys tell me, well, that'll never fly. Of course, they're all pretty big crop producers. So
yeah,
something's got to be working.
Yeah. So your smaller scale stuff, how many landlords you have for your operation?
15 or 16.
Oh my goodness.
I've got cattle I counted up this morning. I've got cattle at 8 different places.
Yeah.
And then this is kind of funny. There are 2 quail preserves here in our county. I farm both of them. One of them, I've got crops growing around the food plots where they put the birds.
Yeah.
The other one I cut hay off of because, that's available. So yeah, I'll take it.
There you go. Wildlife preserves are your place. All right. I'm going to get out of here. I think it's cool. You're talking about Russ Uselton. He's in Shelbyville, Tennessee. Go to an extreme ag event. You're likely to see him. He's a member. I think you're proven. I'm taking away from this. First off, don't be afraid to try new things. Secondly, you can be a first gen. And you know what? There's almost this thing where you got to go around and talk about how big you are. Well, you're not a big time operator and you're still making it all work. You also you come into it with the idea that I don't have to have the legacy. I'm not burdened by the legacy of I'm going to do it like daddy always did it. So that's kind of a cool thing. So cool. Thanks for being here.
Thanks.
Till next time. He's Russ Uselton. If you want to find him, how do they find you?
Oh,
Russell, what's your business? Your email? I got your business card right here. Russell.
Yeah, you have that.
Russell Uselton at bellsouth.net. Russell Uselton. It's Uselton. It's like us, Elton. All right. Till next time. Thanks for being here. I'm Damian Mason, and this is Extreme Ag's Cutting the Curve.
That's a wrap for this episode of Cutting the Curve, but there's plenty more. Check out extremeag.farm, where you can find past episodes, instructional videos, and articles to help you squeeze more profit out of your farm. Cutting the Curve is brought to you by Advanced Drainage Systems, the leader in agriculture water management solutions.